Mark, I saw a picture of the new decorations at the Oval Office today, and I was almost blinded by all the gold.
I noticed that too. I've been noticing it increasingly, but it was really obvious today because right behind the two armchairs where the president and his guest sit, the fireplace has now got this gold embossed on top of it. On the mantelpiece, a Swedish ivy has been there sitting on the mantelpiece. Stretching back to the Kennedy administration. It's gone now, and it's been replaced by a whole load of gold trophies. It's Mar-a-Lago in Washington. I'm Mark Stone.
I'm Martha Kelner.
This is day 53 of Trump 100, and the reason we're talking about the Oval Office is because all eyes have been there as President Trump welcomed his first visitor since Zelensky, the Irish Prime Minister, Micheál Martin. But there's a little cloud over the St. Patrick's Day celebrations.
There certainly is. Countries have begun retaliating to Donald Trump's suite of steel and aluminium tariffs. The US now finds itself at the centre of a global trade war. We're going to get into the detail on tariffs shortly, but we'll start with Trump's first visitor to the White House since that disaster with President Zelensky.
Yeah, these Oval Office visits for world leaders have become huge moments of jeopardy. And sitting next to the president in the Oval Office on Wednesday was the Irish Prime Minister. And travelling with him from Dublin to the Oval was our Ireland correspondent, Stephen Murphy, who I hope is with us. Stephen, you there?
Hi guys, great to be here. Yes, I'm on a very sunny park bench just outside the White House currently.
Welcome to DC. Welcome. How was it? Oval Office moment. Not your first, I don't think.
No, we've done a few of these, but this year and this administration, this was always going to be different. And there was a great deal of nervousness in Dublin amongst Micheál Martin and his government colleagues about how this was going to go.
Was there any tension, Stephen, between the two men? What was Micheál Martin's attitude when he walked into the room?
The approach was signalled this morning. There's a vice presidential breakfast on the St. Patrick's visit. So J.D. Vance is the first person to meet with Micheál Martin at his residence. And there was a great deal of apprehensiveness about how provocative J.D. Vance might be in a few different issues. It was all about shamrock socks and his wife Usha getting to wear her green pants at long last. You could see the wave of relief.
Well, hang on. American pants or British pants?
That actually caused a great deal of consternation, particularly in the pool transcripts. Well, let's go with trousers, Mark. It set the tone. You could see the wave of relief on Micheál Martin's face. It was like, what? Nothing about Irish free speech or nothing about the EU or the trade surplus. This is fantastic.
Look, I mean, the Irish-American relationship is so strong, isn't it? So deep. Although I think, and you may know more on this than me, but the Irish blood doesn't run as thick through this White House as it certainly did through the last. I mean, Biden wore his Irish credentials all over him. I mean, a day didn't go by where he didn't mention Ireland. I don't think there's any Irish blood in Trump, and I'm not sure there is any on J.D. Vance either.
He's actually the first US president since before JFK, I think, that can't claim any Irish heritage, although I think Bill Clinton's was slightly dubious, to be honest, in that regard. But no, look, he doesn't claim to. He doesn't particularly claim to, although he does maintain that he convincingly won the vote of every Irish American. As you say, roots go deep. Huge waves of immigration to this country from Ireland starting after the famine in the 1840s. Nowadays, around 32 million Americans here claim Irish American heritage. But yeah, I mean, the slogan, "The Irish Built America," it speaks to that sort of deep relationship that Dublin in particular is particularly keen to foster and keep going.
Tell us, Stephen, what was the mood like in the room? Like, just paint the picture of the media all going in, because it's so chaotic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always chaotic. It's always a bit of a juggling act between trying to be respectful and just basically trampling all over the Secret Service. I was trying to avoid knocking over one of the lamps onto Donald Trump's shoulder and trying not to elbow J.D. Vance, who was sitting right underneath me. At the same time, I've been looking in the past, both here and in Ireland as well, that he always seems to be pretty open to taking questions from us. And we managed to get a few words from him.
Will you put more tariffs on the EU? Will you respond to their retaliation?
Oh, of course I'm going to respond.
You will retaliate.
The problem is our country didn't respond. Look, the EU was set up in order to take advantage of the United States.
Including Ireland? Is Ireland taking advantage of the US?
Of course they are. I can't, I have great respect for Ireland and what they did. And they should have done just what they did. but the United States shouldn't have let it happen. We had stupid leaders. We had leaders that didn't have a clue. Or let's say they weren't business people, but they didn't have a clue what was happening. I'm not happy with the European Union, I want to tell you.
Will you put tariffs
and
on
we're going to
cars?
win that. We're going to win that financial battle. It's a
Tariffs
financial
on
battle.
European cars, Mr. President? Tariffs on European cars? Is that something you're going to consider?
Oh, absolutely. I will do that. Yeah.
Mr. President,
Think of it. They have millions of cars coming in, millions and millions of cars. One of probably the largest. Japan's very big too, but and they don't accept our cars. We make great cars.
Micheál Martin, he's not a very exuberant or expressive or flamboyant leader. He is solid. He is dependable. He is experienced. He was a diplomat. He was foreign minister previously. We knew what his approach would be. It would not rise to any bait. Smile, nod, say polite things, be respectful, and emphasize the two-way nature of the Irish relationship. So it wasn't a sort of a bromance Macron sort of thing, and it certainly wasn't rising to the bait like the unfortunate Ukrainian president. It was somewhere in the middle, somewhere unremarkable. And to be honest, they'll consider that a huge success.
I've watched every one of the world leaders coming. I think that increasingly they're working out how to play Trump. Maybe play him's not the right word, but how to ride out these moments, allow the president to say what he wants to say, and then to gently correct him, to challenge him a little, to put across their point of view with respect. I guess that the Taoiseach is representing not just his country, but as you say, the European Union as well. An EU that Trump says is screwing him, an EU that has just had massive tariffs whacked onto it. It seemed clear to me that the Irish Prime Minister kind of let Trump say his bit. He sat tight, smiling. Trump said how the US pharmaceutical industry, for example, is moving to Ireland. Yep, that's true. And it's great for Ireland. It's terrible for America. But then Micheál Martin, he sort of gently pointed out that, by the way, Mr. President, companies like Ryanair, they're spending big on American firms like Boeing. It works both ways, Mr. President, was the gentle message I kind of got. And I wondered whether in other European capitals they were going, yep, those are the right buttons to push.
There was clearly, though, Stephen, this tariff-shaped elephant in the room, wasn't there, which I'm sure impacted the tone and the mood of what we were seeing.
Of course, and obviously we had a string of sort of retaliatory measures. So once Donald Trump put his sort of global, I suppose, tariff on steel and aluminium, the EU was left with really little option but to strike back. And I remember it was the same as the sort of target that we saw in the first Donald Trump administration, things like Harley Davidsons, motorbikes, bourbon, Jack Daniels, those sort of products, and those products that are generally seen as being aimed more towards red states as well.
Stephen, fascinating. I hope you enjoyed the trip. We loved having you here. Come back soon, will you?
Great stuff. I will, of course, and maybe not on a park bench next time.
Get yourself
Thank
to
you,
the Euro.
Pigeons. Too many pigeons. Cheers. Thank you, guys.
Now, Martha, let's shift to Canada where you are, because it is the biggest foreign supplier of steel and aluminum, as they say, to the United States. And they too have responded with retaliatory tariffs, 25% on more than $20 billion worth of US goods, including steel and aluminum, as well as other US goods, including computers, sporting equipment, cast iron products. All the rest of it. Martha, tell us how people are feeling, because it's kind of extraordinary, isn't it? We've taken this whole 51st state thing with a pinch of salt, but increasingly thinking he kind of means it.
Yeah, like you say, I think it's been almost treated as a joke. I was on holiday, as everyone knows, the last couple of weeks, and I met quite a few Canadians in Costa Rica, and they would. People were joking to them about the idea of them becoming the 51st state, and they bristled at that, actually, because I think this is a genuine fear that Canadians have. They are scared of the idea of annexation, about a ground invasion even, and that's it. It really is just the idea that we've got here so quickly, that this relationship between these, this brother-sister country has deteriorated so rapidly in the course of just a few weeks. And it's not just people on the streets, in the coffee shops and the restaurants that are scared. Even the main political leader in this province, I was speaking to him, David Eby, the Premier of British Columbia. He says, we have to take this threat that Donald Trump is making repeatedly, and we have to take it seriously.
Well, I find it deeply unsettling. The advice that we get continually about the president is to
take him seriously, but not literally. I would love to have that kind of luxury. And the danger, I think, is not taking him literally and seriously.
Canadians are not known clearly for being particularly angry or outspoken. They're a quiet, considered people, but they are furious about this. I've been in BC, British Columbia, for the past few days in Vancouver and Vancouver Island. And I think, firstly, what I've noticed is a sense of disbelief at what's happening. I don't think anyone expected this amount of aggression in terms of the rhetoric and of the economic punishments from Trump towards Canada so quickly. I met a group of government workers who were on the ferry from Vancouver to Victoria on Vancouver Island, a group of colleagues, all different ages, all different colours. They were doing their annual trip over here. And I asked one of them, a young man, what he thinks the end game to all of this is.
Just to cause chaos, that's what I think. So yeah, not too thrilled about it, but it's kind of galvanized Canadians together, so that's the silver lining.
I was planning a trip to Las Vegas. We've canceled that. Now we're going to Salt Spring Island. When I go to the grocery store, I look for the Canadian, that little maple leaf that a lot of grocery stores have put on the shelves. So, try and purchase Canadian items or Mexican items, anything other than the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know whether to take Trump seriously sometimes. So you kind of feel like you have to. And then, as his trade guy said to me yesterday, it's all part of a negotiation, the inference being don't take him seriously. So, I mean, it's hard to keep up.
It is really hard to keep up. And one of the things I keep hearing repeatedly from people over here is they think he's trying to create chaos within Canada in order to weaken the economy, in order to enrich America, but also enrich himself personally and his buddies. And I think there's a real fatigue as well at the sort of on-off tit-for-tat nature of these tariffs. Trade policy here is changing hour by hour, and Canadians feel that they're beholden to the whim of one man. Are they actually going to happen, or is this just a push and pull of Donald Trump's negotiations?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, isn't it? I've been thinking about the British response to all this as well, because it's relatively unique. They are not reciprocating. They're not retaliating. And that's a very conscious decision. Why? I think it's simple realpolitik. Keir Starmer thinks, maybe with good reason, that he has a unique role to play here, the key conduit between Trump and the European Union on Ukraine, helping to persuade Trump to backstop Europe militarily, not to abandon Europe. And if he retaliates on tariffs, if he puts in place reciprocal tariffs, then his leverage is kind of lost. Mm-hmm. He also incidentally hopes that by not retaliating, that he can massage a trade deal with America more easily down the line. But on Ukraine, I think there's something else as well, or someone else. Jonathan Powell, he's Starmer's national security advisor. He's a key figure in British politics and has been for many, many years. He was Tony Blair's chief of staff, a man who knows a thing or two about successful peace processes because he was at the heart of the Good Friday Agreement alongside Tony Blair. Now, interestingly, Jonathan Powell has been in Kyiv recently, and he is in Washington over the next few days. So I wonder if he is kind of the cornerstone of the special relationship right now, bridging America to Europe via the UK.
There's another story, Mark, we should speak about that's been developing over the past few days. Tell us about Mahmoud Khalil.
Yeah, Mahmoud Kamil is a US resident. He was a graduate student at Columbia University in New York City until December. On Saturday, just gone, he was detained by the federal immigration agents in New York and flown to an immigration jail in Louisiana. His 8-month pregnant wife was there with him. She is a US citizen. He has a green card, so he is a lawful resident here in the United States. His arrest, the administration say, is because he was a key organizer of the pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia last spring. The Trump administration is singling him out, and they say, Donald Trump says there will be many more that they will arrest as well, for his role in those protests. Caroline Levitt, the press secretary, said yesterday, or suggested, but was quite sort of woolly with her words, that he had been handing out flyers, leaflets with Hamas logos on them. There is no evidence of him having done this. What he was doing was sticking up for Palestinian rights.
This is an extraordinary situation, though, isn't it? Because his arrest, Mahmoud Khalil's arrest by immigration authorities, raises serious questions about the security of others who have this green card status. There's also been some movement on the story on Wednesday. He had a procedural hearing in New York where he's been told he has to stay in ICE detention in Louisiana, which is hours away from his family. And as you mentioned, Mark, his 8 months pregnant wife. And this case is really the first of its kind, but could set the stage for what's to come as the Trump administration ramps up its targeting of students who were protesting, and particularly these pro-Palestinian protests. Another thing I thought was interesting is that Columbia University students are being warned not to publish any work on Gaza, any work on Ukraine, or anything related to Mahmoud Khalil's arrest. So there are also questions about their freedom of speech, their right to freedom of speech and expression.
It's effectively a test case. Donald Trump and his administration are pushing the envelope, seeing what they can do. And this directly challenges immigration law and First Amendment protection. That is the right to free speech. We will watch that one very closely indeed.
That's all we've got time for today. Before we go, a reminder to send us your questions for this weekend's Q&A episode.
Yeah, you can email us at trump100@sky.uk, and if you don't already, please do follow Trump100 wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you for joining us on day 53 of Trump 100. See you tomorrow for day 54.
Bye-bye.